Okay, now let's start with this add student JSP now. Here I am going to register a student with his details. So the details are ID, name, campus and module. Modules, there can be many modules. So first let's define a function for that. So I'm going to this iStudent interface and naming a function public void. It's not going to return anything, so public void. I'm naming it as add student. The details I'm going to pass is ID, it's an integer, string, that is name, then another string value, that is campus. Okay, with this we need to create another function to add the module. So modules details are going to be in another table, a table with many-to-many relationship. So that's going to be added separately in another table, this table, student modules table. So there are two columns for student ID and module ID. So I'm creating another function and naming it as add student modules. Here, so I'm passing the details of the student ID and the module ID. Module ID is the string value. So that's it. So this is how we are going to do the insert function. Here we are going to enter the values in the form. These form values will be passed to the servlet. I will do the servlet next. I'll come to that. Then from there on, those values are passed into the parameters of this function from that servlet. So using those values, we are going to insert into the tables. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to implement the SQL statements in Java code. Okay, so here we are going to implement those two functions, add student and add student modules. So in add student, very first we need to get the connection for our database. So I have already created a class and did all the coding to get the connection for our database. That is this db connection.java class file. So here I am going to just pass that connection value to this connection object that we have declared here. So that is a static method I have created called initializeDB. So that's what I am going to call now, db connection dot initializeDB. So that connection will be passed here. So it has to handle the exception, so I'm surrounding it with multi-catch. Then next we are going to create a prepare statement for insert. So this prepare statement is what we are going to use for the insert, update, delete, those functions, those SQL statements. So create the prepare statement. We have to call the prepare statement function of this connection class. So connection dot prepare statement. So inside this parameter we have to enter our SQL statement, the insert statement or whatever that we are going to do as a string. So here I am going to, so normally while doing insert operations, what we do is insert into the table's name. So here the table name is student. Then if we want to specify the columns, then we will specify the column names here, what the column names, and then the values, whatever the value, x or y or z something. So here in this prepare statement, we are not going to specify the values here, and before that, if you are doing if you want to pass all the values into the column, into the table for all the columns, then you don't need to specify the columns. So I am not specifying the columns because I am passing all three values of the student table, ID, name and campus. And inside these values, instead of specifying the actual values, here we are going to use placeholders, the parameters. So here we are going to use parameters represented by question mark placeholders. So I am mentioning 3 question marks for 3 values, and from the next line we are going to set the values for those parameters. So we have to set parameter based on the data type and the position of this question mark, like we have to count it from left to right, 1 2 3. So the first one is I think the first column is primary key, that is ID. So first that's data type is integer. So what we have to do is pt dot set int, and the first parameter is parameter index, that is the number which the position of the value, so that is 1. The next one is the value. So value is the value that we are going to pass is the ID. The ID that is passed using the servlet to this function, this here. So that is how we are going to pass the values to the prepare statement parameter. So next is after ID, next one is name. So pt dot set string, so parameter index the second one, and the value is the name. And next one is set again string, third value, and that is campus. Okay, then so we are done. So that's how the prepare statement works. First we get the connection for our database, then using the connection we call the prepare statement function, and inside the parameter we have to write our SQL statement. So here I'm going to perform the insert, so I'm writing the insert statement. So insert into the table name, so I'm not specifying in a column, so straight away I'm entering the values. So values, so inside the bracket, instead of hard coding the actual values, that's what we normally do with our SQL script here, like in this module table I have straight away insert into module and the values for each column. But here instead of entering the values, we have to mention the parameters as a question mark placeholders, depending on the number of values, like there are 3 columns for 3 question marks. If there are more, then more question marks, and thereafter we have to set the value for that, depending on their position in this parameter, first one or second one or third one, and their data type as well. according to data type that we have mentioned in the database, then only it will accept. So in this way, this prepare statement can be done, and after setting all the values, then we can execute it. So it will execute it next, and once we have done with all these, while doing whether the same goes to callable statement too. If you are performing any procedure, there also you have to set the parameters like in this question mark format and set the values. So that also same way like this. So anyways, if you have done your CRUD function using this prepare statement or even a callable statement, then after finishing it, it's a good practice if you close those connection and statements for some technical reason, like if you close the connection value and if you close the connection object and this pt, the prepare statement object, this resources will be released. So most cases you won't get any trouble by this, but in some way server make it crashed. So due to that reason, it's always better if you practice this. So in the finally block, close the statement objects and the connection objects. So the reason to do this in this final block is the reason to do that in this final block is finally block will execute whatever happens in this try, whether this try catch any exceptions or not. So we can safely say that connection is closed after getting it. So this can help to avoid the database consuming more resources. So that's the reason to give it in the final block. So I am closing the prepare statement object and the connection object. Okay, close it down, and it asks for exception. So I'm surrounding with multi-catch, so I can put this into this try block. So that's it, how this function is done. Next one is the add student modules. So it's going to be, so the function body is going to be the same manner. This try catch finally are also all going to be same, only the prepare statement is going to be changed and the parameters. So I am copying and pasting down here, and here I am inserting to student, the table name I have mentioned it as student module. So student modules, there are two values. So there are only two values. So one is SID, the student ID, and the next one is MID. Yes, so that's how the column order is, and I am executing it, and here also it's closing the connection, so it's safe here also. Okay, we are done with these two functions implementations. Now go to our JSP, and so from here itself it starts, we enter the values and pass those to the servlet. So now go to the servlet creation. So right click, those servlets are going to be in this controller package because servlet is a controller. So servlet works as a controller. So right click on it, you go to new and create a servlet, and in this servlet also like in the JSP, give a meaningful name, add student, so you can remember it. add student, finish. I forgot to tell that in this function implementations to keep your naming sense as I said in this JSP file and servlet, give a meaningful name for the functions you define, because there are going to be a lot of functions in your project you are going to implement, so you have to remember all those. So better to give a meaningful name. And here inside this servlet, this is how it looks like. So this is where we are going to perform our value retrieval and passing it to the other functions in the do post method, because the method that we use for our form is post. So that's why in the servlet we are going to perform our implementation in the do post methods body. So here in this action, give the name of your servlet. The action is the one which we specify where these form values have to be passed. So I mentioned add student. So okay, there is another method also using XML file. You can map this servlet to you can map this JSP to servlet, but this is a better way and easy. So I am giving the action as add student. Now remember the name you have given for each fields. For student ID I have given as ID, name itself is name, campus is campus, and the modules, the checkbox part, I will explain it briefly now. Now finish other three. So here we are going to retrieve those values.